Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Greetings, good people. Welcome to another session of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. Today, I have someone that's going to teach you about something you probably don't get to hear too often about, and that is working within the walls of the California state prison system. We have a young lady here who has spent, I think, over 30 years in the prison system. I'm sure you have questions. Why that career? Why a woman in that career? But understand this, moving forward, there is no career that a woman is not fit to serve in. There is no career, there is no job where a woman cannot lead in. So what we need to do is really start to understand that there is a role for a woman in just about every industry. Now, what that role looks like, how it takes shape, it might not be the traditional way. What each person brings to the job is something that you may not have even imagined that the element was needed in order for the process or the operation to perform well. So today I'm going to bring you Miss, I know her as Tracy, but you're going to learn to know her as Miss T.L. Cromwell. She has a new book out called Time Served, and I'm super excited to have her today. What's going on, TL?
Hi, Tanya. How are you? It's so nice to be here with you. I'm super excited.
I am so glad to have you because I know that the audience has questions. I actually got questions in my inbox to ask you once people knew that you were going to be here. So I am excited to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and jump into it, though. I want you to talk about your title. It has gone from captain to author. Tell the people where you are now and how you got from captain to author.
Well, as you well know, Tanya, I worked in the California prison system for 21 plus years. I started as a correctional officer. I worked for the California Department of Corrections at California State Prison, Los Angeles County, and then at Chino Institution for Men. I started as a correctional officer and I promoted through the chain until I was a correctional captain, and I retired in 2015 as a correctional captain. And I knew I wanted to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. But like most people, I didn't know what I wanted to write a book about. So I just kind of put that on the back burner. I was too busy getting through school, choosing a career, raising my family. And then I had the time to write. So in 2020, I sat down to write my book, Time Served. And it has a lot of gems and all kinds of nuggets about how it was for me to work in the California prison system as a woman.
Debbie Ellickson tapped in and said, such appropriate timing given the news as of late. Deb, I would love to hear what you mean by that, and if you have any questions for TL here. The author process, tell us what that was like for you, though. Talk about writing your book. What was that like?
It was very cathartic. I had over 2 decades of working in only male-only prisons. And so it gave me time to sit back, think about what I had experienced, what I had learned, and what I wanted to share. I'm an early morning person, so I would get up early in the morning, and there's something to be said about the stillness of the middle of the night when everybody's asleep. Clears your mind, and it gives you the opportunity to allow the universe to bring whatever the universe wants to bring, and then you can decide how much you want to share with the world. It was very cathartic.
I love that. You were in a male-dominated industry. Answer
I
me this.
was.
Answer me this. With this career choice that you had, were you able to be your full self? Were you able to be your authentic self, or did you have to be someone else in your job in order to survive and excel? Or was it kind of a mix of both?
That's a really good question, Tanya. Well, in the very beginning, it was a little tough. Of course, it was tough. I wasn't used to it. I wasn't aware of what I brought to the table, who I was going to be. And of course, I was a little scared. But over time, of course, I adjusted. I am a people person. I have a very strong personality. I'm very opinionated, and I know how to stand up for myself. I often said when I would talk about my career was that the department spoke to me as a person. It spoke to my strengths. And over time, I felt like I could find my place and I could determine who I authentically was. And that's what I brought to the table in my career. But of course, in very early stages of going inside those prison walls, it was a little tough. But after a while, it became another day at the office.
So one thing I've learned about you is you're an extrovert, right? And you're
I
pretty
am.
social. How is it though being social in an environment where you almost have to have a lot of boundaries? Like, how can you be social in a place that can be so unsafe?
I am an extrovert and I am a social person in social situations. But in
Mm,
my work environment, I'm not social. So there's parts of us that we bring out when necessary, and there's parts of us that we tuck away when they're not needed. And that's what you do in any career field. If you're a firefighter, you work for Amazon, you do something different at work than you do outside with your friends and your family. So you compartmentalize. So yeah, I'm very extroverted, love to talk, very friendly. But when I was inside those prison walls, I was Captain Cromwell.
okay, but now you're talking about kind of concealing parts of you, and
Not
you've
not
been
concealing, not concealing,
talking
just
about.
not showing it when it's inappropriate to do
Okay,
so.
so it's almost hiding your vulnerabilities.
No, there was many times I was vulnerable, but it depended on with who,
Mm.
when, and the situation. Even at home, you're not vulnerable all the time. So you're certainly not going to be that way in your job, in your career, around your colleagues, much less around inmates. So what I felt like was you have to compartmentalize different parts of who you are, and then you can bring them out when needed and necessary, when it's appropriate.
It's so funny because we're in a society right now where they're teaching kids, um, you know, your feelings matter. They always matter. Be your full self all the time. Like, do you think that's the right way that we should be raising young people, because that is also starting to show up in professional atmospheres? Or should there be more professional development as kids mature as to how you need to perform professionally and in school as opposed to out in the streets with your friends and at home with your parents?
Well, you just said it right there. If you're in France, you speak French. But if you're in Spain, it wouldn't be appropriate for you to speak French, would it?
That
Of
ain't what they
course
teaching these
not.
days. They're teaching be your full self all the time, everywhere. Be your full self all the time. And I'm like, actually, don't. I don't.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly, but I'm from a different generation and I was raised differently. And as a result, I raised my daughter differently. There are situations that require a different decorum. It requires something different of you. It absolutely requires some for you to bring something different to the table. And that doesn't mean you're not being your authentic self. That doesn't mean that your feelings don't matter, but maybe in some situations it's inappropriate to share those particular feelings. I'm old school. So there's personal integrity and there's professional integrity. And like my mother said, don't go outside and embarrass me.
Okay.
So, so if I'm going to the work, taking myself to work, I'm in a professional setting. So I'm gonna behave appropriately in a professional setting. And no, I can't be my total self all the time. I'm not supposed to be. So
You talked about your mom. What are some of the things that your mom taught you, that you, other than that, that you were able to take into this really tough male dominated industry?
My mother, my mother was a praying mama, and I know that her prayers protected me wherever I went, and they certainly protected me inside those prison walls. She was a very, very strong, very opinionated lady, and that's how we were raised, to do the right thing, always do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. So that's where I got my personal integrity, that's where I got my professional integrity, and she taught me so many things throughout my life. Those things that I remembered: treat people the way you want to be treated, even in prison. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a lot of gems and nuggets and little sayings from my mom throughout the book, because my mom is what kept, who made me be who I am, who taught me to be who I am, where it's appropriate to be where I am. And yeah, she taught me a lot of things, and it helped me throughout my career as well as throughout my life.
You said was. Is your mom still with you?
No, unfortunately, she passed away over 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, so she was with you when you took on this career. What,
Oh
how did
yeah.
you feel about her daughter entering into this field?
Well, I think she was like a lot of the general public. They don't know what that entails.
Mm,
They know, oh, you're going to be working in prison. Oh, okay. And unless you tell them exactly what that entails, the training, the experience, the things that you have to go through, they don't, people don't understand it. They see things on TV, they watch a movie. By the way, I can't watch any of those movies.
really?
But and that's what they think it is. So I wrote my book for the general public so they can get just a little taste of the day-to-day life of a correctional officer.
I love that.
So
Thank you. Miss Deb said in Georgia, a female DA, the Fulton County workers, many females, uh, DC women are front and center globally, bringing accountability. Yes, they are. The vitriol against them, however, is nothing new for women in public positions or roles traditionally male. Yes. Is it different for women in prisons who work with inmates directly? So do you catch it more? Do you deal with a lot more vitriol as a woman, particularly a black woman behind bars working with these people? Or do you feel like you get just as much vitriol as um any other prison worker?
well, that's interesting because everybody has their own personal experience, and I can only speak for myself.
Okay.
And when you work in a non-traditional career field where it's dominated by men, there's a level of sexism that you're going to deal with, period. And there was some sexism throughout my career. There wasn't anything that I couldn't deal with. It wasn't anything I couldn't handle. It wasn't anything I didn't triumph over. Like I said before, you bring your personal integrity as well as your professional integrity. And I have a very strong personality, so nobody's going to push me around. You have to make sure that your career choice speaks to who you are and you can stand firm in who you are. And I think I did that. And so I retired in 2015. I had a long career. Um, there were some wonderful things and some not so wonderful things. So yeah, yeah,
I
you
mean,
get you get a lot.
I want to piggyback on that though, and just my thoughts are any woman of color that is in a powerful position has been dealing with vitriol since she started. Like I can't think of one right now that I can say she just had an easy ride and everybody was nice to her.
No,
So I'm almost feeling like by the time they get there, it really is kind of, water off their back because they've been dealing with that their whole career. I mean, your thoughts?
yeah, I can agree with that. For me personally, I started off in juvenile hall.
Hmm.
And then I worked in child support for the district attorney. You see a pattern?
Yep, yep.
And then eventually I joined the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So it was just a little bit more
Hmm.
each time. But like I said, I have a personality and I was built for it. You're not going to push me around. You're not going to push me around. So you have to be strong and you have to be convicted and you have to have a real strong sense of self. And that's where my mama comes in.
And what if you don't? I'm sure you've worked with people who probably were a little weaker in demeanor and self-esteem than you.
And
What
so
does
I
that
would
look,
say
what does
then
that look
perhaps
like?
that's not the career path you should follow. Maybe that's not the
Did you
job
ever
for you.
witness it? Is that something you ever witnessed?
Sure, absolutely. I worked in prison for over 2 decades. There is absolutely nothing I did not witness. And again, I shared all in the book.
What was your scariest moment working in the prison?
Well, as you can well imagine, there were many scary moments. There are things that you cannot wrap your mind around if you don't work there. There were times where I saw inmates assault each other. I've seen staff be assaulted. I was locked in an area with inmates without a means to escape. I didn't have keys. A
How did
little
that end?
scary.
Tell us
That was a
about
little
that.
scary, but I haven't gotten to the scariest part.
Okay.
The scariest incident for me is a full blown riot on the yard.
Hmm.
That was one of the scariest incidents I ever experienced while I
Talk
worked in
about it.
prison. And it's in chapter 12. So I was doing some overtime. We did a lot of overtime, and I happened to be the control booth officer, and that's an elevated position. So you're not on the yard or on the floor with staff or inmates. And what started out as a regular fist fight on the yard turned into a full scale riot. And it was almost surreal, like it was in slow motion and something you've seen in a movie. And that was, I would say, the scariest incident that I ever experienced,
What
having
were you
worked two
thinking?
decades in prison.
What were you thinking while that was
I'm
going
thinking,
on?
what the heck is going on? Is this really what I'm seeing? It was almost in slow motion. Everybody got up at one time and started to fight. Yeah.
So how does that end? Like, tell us. How
Well,
does that
how it
even?
ends is we have a gunner on the yard.
A
He's
gun.
yelling for them to get down. There are weapons pointed at the yard. They're giving them instructions to get down. Officers start to advance. They use their pepper spray to quell the disturbance. Everything you've seen in a movie. Everything you've seen in the movie. And eventually they get tired and they get down.
Jesus.
So that's
And
a
you sitting
riot.
there like, what in the heck?
Well, not necessarily sitting there because my training and my experience kicks in. And since I'm in an elevated position and I have a weapon,
See,
then I have to do my job.
uh, TL, my
Yes.
husband is in tech. He's a corporate boss. Okay. Sometimes it's hard for him to come out of his boss mode. With your personality and the job that you do, was there ever a time where it was hard to come out of captain mode when you were at home? What does that look like?
So, of course, it was a struggle.
Talk
But I'm
about
not
it.
sure if it wouldn't be a struggle if I worked anywhere else. But of course, I did work in a very dangerous environment. And so you have a heightened sense of security all times, at all times. We call it code yellow. You stay on code yellow at all times. And so when you come home and you're dealing with maybe spouses, partners, and children, so it's very difficult to leave all the knowledge and experience that you have at the job because you're always on the lookout for what's going on. You're always at code yellow. And I'm telling you, it helped me a lot when I was raising my teenage daughter. You should always be at code yellow when you're raising a teenage daughter. So yeah, it was a struggle sometimes. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes I wasn't. But that just is what it is. It was so ingrained in my personality by then. Sometimes it was hard to know where the job ended and where I began because the training is so ingrained in you because in a moment's notice, that quick, you have to react to something. And we do a lot of reality-based training so that you have muscle memory. So you don't freeze up. when something happens. And it just becomes who you are, and you learn how to deal with it. And unfortunately, your family learns how to deal with it too.
Many law enforcement professionals, when they retire, quality of life isn't always great. How has retirement treated you?
Oh my God, I love retirement. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I think those problems that you're referring to is when people don't have a plan B. They haven't planned their lives outside of their job, or they have become their job or who they are. And the first year, you have to give yourself at least the first year and give yourself some grace. I was Captain Cromwell when I retired. So it took me a little while to stop being Captain Cromwell. But then I could be mom, and I could be, thank God, grandma. I'm a grandma now. I could be grandma, I could be girlfriend, I could be best friend, I could be partner, I could be sister. So over time, I learned how to take off the armor and the shield and just breathe.
Hmm.
And then I had this extensive bucket list, and I was so busy doing things and going places and flying here and going there. I wanted to see it all because I wasn't able to do that throughout my career because we didn't get that much time off. You get a week here, you get a week there, you get, a 3 day or 4 day weekend here and there throughout your life, but that's not enough. And so I kept myself busy. I gave myself grace. I became a brand new grandma, and I just leaned into it.
I love that. I love that for you. But during that time when you were working really hard and Captain Cromwell, what was your mental state and how did you maintain mental health and balance, or did you? And
I
does
did.
the system support that?
The system supports it, but let me get back to me personally working in that environment. And sometimes it is a struggle to maintain your mental health, regardless of what job you work. So the department has an employee assistant program, EAP, and it gives you the opportunity to seek help if you're struggling. If you can't talk to your partner, your spouse, your girlfriends. I did talk to my girlfriends a lot, and most of my girlfriends also worked in prison, so we understood each other. But I did take advantage of the employee assistant program many times throughout my career, and I sought help. When you know you're struggling, you should seek help.
What about when you don't know that you're struggling?
Well,
And
that's a
did you have coworkers that you could see they're struggling and they couldn't? Like, what did that look like?
well, even more than that, Tanya. Sometimes I was struggling and I didn't seek help.
Hmm.
And hindsight being 2020, yeah, I maybe should have sat on a couch at that time. It's easy to see after the fact. Sometimes we're so caught up and so busy with our day to day lives and the struggles that we don't even know we're struggling. And that's where your girlfriends come in. That's where your tribe comes in. That's where the people around you come in. And, sometimes they can see it. And sometimes they'll tell you. And sometimes they'll be the help that you need. So, I mean, we're all human beings, regardless of where we work. So, I think it's very important for us to understand ourselves first and foremost, because then I just can't get out of bed today and I don't know what's going on. You have to figure it out and you have to seek help.
So I'm going to take you back to the motherhood thing. I'm dealing with a teenager myself.
Oh, girl, I'm going to pray for you.
Okay. I'm, what am I missing? Listen, I am a mother without a mother, so I'm always looking for great advice. So for mothers of teenage girls right now, what advice do you have for them?
I don't know if my daughter's going to appreciate this, but I believe in counseling. Anytime I was struggling with her and anytime I felt she was struggling, we went and got counseling. We got counseling as mother and daughter. I got her counseling as an individual. We utilized our EAP program and we got counseling throughout. Sometimes I would have her father talk to her because sometimes a male perspective is something that they need. And it was unfortunate. Oh, my mother was still alive then, so grandma can kick in. whoever they are close to, sometimes you have to remove yourself from the situation because we want them to get it. We want them to understand. We are their biggest advocates and we want everything for them. But sometimes we're too close. So I would utilize the people around me, her father, her grandfather, her stepfather, my mother, and then I would also seek professional help. And I loved her to death. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. So there was nothing I wouldn't do for her, but sometimes I really did have to just step back. Let daddy handle it sometimes.
I appreciate that. I really do. Back to your writing process. I know that writing a book is difficult. Were there ever times when you were writing and you just had to stop? Like, were there moments where you were like, okay, I need to take a time out?
Well, you know me a little, Tanya, so you know. There were many times I had to stop because I am a big old baby. I will cry and cry and cry, but it's cathartic. And after so many years of not being able to just cry, I had to stop quite frequently. But what I found that out was that my writing was cathartic for me. It allowed me to work through those emotions. It allowed me to look at stuff and I would think, man, I worked in a dangerous place. How did I do that? Because when you're doing it, you're just doing it. It's just a job. It's another day at the office. And you go to work and you do what's required and you go home. But hindsight being 2020 and me looking at the different layers while I'm writing, it allowed me to tap into some of those emotions that I did not tap into during that time of my life. I was very stoic, very stoic. Not so much anymore. So it was very cathartic for me. I really enjoyed it. I'm an early morning riser and I'm an early morning writer. And there's something to be said about being up in the early morning when the world is still asleep and allowing the universe to just bring you what the universe has for you.
Mm, say
So
that.
I really did enjoy the writing process.
What did it teach you about yourself?
To sit still sometimes.
Mm,
I'm
say it.
always going, doing. What's next? What next? What's next? And the writing process made me sit still. It made me think through things. It made me rehash things. It made me recognize deficits in my personality and things that I wanted to change. It made me recognize the things I loved about myself and I love sharing with the world. It's amazing what writing a memoir will do for you. And if you're transparent about your triumphs as well as your failures, it can help you grow in so many different ways. And you will become a better person on the other side of that.
Miss TL, I'm going to need you to read me a passage from that book. I want the people to go out and support this project and also share it with someone. I want you to buy 2 copies for yourself and for a woman in your life. But go ahead and pick a passage for the people so that they know what they're getting.
Sure. And by the way, it's a very good read.
Hey.
All right. So I'm going to read a short passage of when I arrived to the institution on my very first day. On August 29th, 1994, I arrived at CSPLAC, having graduated from the academy the Friday before. I was one of 2 Black women that reported. After I graduated from the academy, I was required to report to my designated institution on the following Monday for a week of OJT. As a cadet, I remember the old prison guard at DVI telling us, the academy is where you are trained how to be a correctional officer, but the prison is where you learn to do your job. I was looking forward to it. You want to read some more?
Nope, I want them to want to read the rest because I think you've shared a lot with us about how this career has changed you, how it has molded you, how it has played a role in your household, how it has maybe changed others that had the opportunity to interact with you. So I do want to thank you so much for being here today. Let the people know how they can get a copy, how they can stay connected to you and follow your journey.
So you can buy the book. It's available now on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and all platforms where you purchase your books. Also, you can buy the book from the publisher, KP Publishing. As far as getting in touch with me, you can get in touch with me several different ways. On my website at tlcromwell.com, you can send me an email at tlcromwellauthor@gmail.com. And I am on several social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, as well as TikTok. And I am at TL Cromwell Author.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Oh,
for
you're
being here.
welcome.
And we wish you all the luck in the world with everything that you have going on. Will there be another book?
So I am writing my follow-up book to Time Served, and I believe there might be 3 books.
Okay.
So it
All right.
might turn into a series. And what I say is stay tuned.
Okay. Stay tuned, y'all. All right, Miss TL Cromwell, thank you for being here. We appreciate you, and you will always be a part of the Leaders and Learners family.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I really appreciate you and your audience. I had a wonderful time.
Thanks so much. All right, y'all. Listen, get the book. I know about some of the stories in the book. I was trying to get her to share them with you, but she gonna make you buy it and read them. Maybe we'll have her back again just to tell stories. You know, I love a good story. But there are some very juicy pieces. Some a little salacious, some emotional, but definitely worth the read. So I wanted to make sure you understand. Listen, TL is the business, and anything that you were wondering about that goes on inside of the prison walls, she shares with you in detail. And if you wasn't sure, she shares with you in Time Served. So make sure that you get the opportunity. Grab the book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes and Noble. I know she has an event coming up in the Palmdale area, I think in October. So if you're around in Los Angeles area, that'll be great. Stay tuned. Stay connected to our website. All of that information is there. But more than anything else, I want to thank you for being here on Leaders and Learners. Make sure you like and share this with someone else, especially a young lady that you might know that's trying to figure out what she wants to do next. This is an option. It's definitely an option. And TL talks a lot more about that in the book. So, Time Served, TL Cromwell, stay connected, and we'll see you soon. Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What do you think about today's episode? And share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.